that biodiversity is, of course, the foundation, the rock, the bedrock that we at Sweden Foodtech stand on these days in order to make sure that we have a prosperous future for ourselves and our kids. The theory goes, if we solve biodiversity, the rest will follow. And for kind of obvious reasons. I mean, we've lost so much land to degradation over the past few decades, basically a third of all farm arable land. And with the help of biodiversity, we can actually bring those pieces of lost land up again. And of course, it's far healthier for us to eat in a biodiverse way as well. I mean, there are roughly 12 grains or 12 plants and 5 animals currently producing 75% of all nutrition for us on planet Earth. And that, of course, is not diverse at all. Maghana,
hi.
Good to see you.
So good to see you too.
Good. Where are you?
I'm in Gurgaon in India, near Delhi.
Cool. You're home in India. That's good to hear. No,
I have not moved since the middle of March. It's sort of more than 500 meters around my home.
Okay, I feel so sorry for you. But on the other hand, I think you have kind of a lot of things to do back home because Slurrp farm is going like a rocket, as far as I understand it. But again, I'm like, you're a former super, banker, engineer, Rhodes Scholar, international swimmer with some 400 gold medals. But aren't you working for the greatest prize of them all right now with Slurrp Farms? You have to tell us a bit more about it because I've been fascinated about that stuff since you first told me about it a couple of years ago.
Yes, of course. I'm going to just share my screen right now. Okay, great. Thank you so much for inviting us again to Sweden. Last year was a bit more fun because we were there in person. I'm Maghana Narayan, and along with Shorvi Malik, I'm building I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission to get kids to eat healthy food, better food. What do I mean by better? I mean better being nutritionally more diverse, nutritionally more dense, and also, echoing what a lot of people have been saying earlier today, on the previous panel, which is food that's not only good for us but good for the farmer and good for the planet. So that's what we're doing at Slurrp Farm. The problem that we're trying to solve, we all have seen this. We know this. The numbers are evident. The world is in a huge nutrition crisis. Of the 7 billion people or so in the world, 2 billion are undernourished and another 2 are obese. In India, that's 1 out of 4 children who are either obese or malnourished. 90% of kids who are protein deficient. And this is across income groups. So it's not just India's a poor country and they're poor people and they're wealthy people, and we've forgotten how to feed our children. And again, this is not an India problem either. The Americas, China, they're all, obesity, early childhood obesity is on the rise. The nutrition crisis impacts 7 out of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So this is more than just food. Johan was just saying, right? We eat 12, 12 plant and 5 animal species. Of the grain pool, it's wheat, rice, and corn. That's broadly 50% of plants that are eaten. In India, it's wheat and rice that dominate the plate. Wheat and rice traditionally that's a paddy field that you're seeing, a rice field. That's how much water it takes to grow paddy. And frankly, we are running out of water. We are running out of water at alarming rates. And what that is causing is a really very sad crisis of farmers who are getting into debt because they're unable to meet their interest demands, and hence suicides in amongst the farmer community have grown. This is something that has been reported in many articles, and this monoculture sort of system that we have built is really not sustainable. So, through our journey, Shoravi is an economist. I am a mathematician, computer scientist. So we don't have a food background. And I think maybe that's what it took. It took two people who have no we don't have, we didn't think that you have to make things a certain way and, only using sort of the existing grains. So, we asked some very obvious questions like, why would you use wheat and rice when there are other options? Millets, lentils have been grown in India for thousands, they're as old as 10,000 years, right? And these are grains that are good for the farmer because they don't require as much water, almost a tenth. No pesticides, they're hardy crops. They grow in really difficult conditions. They're good for the planet because of that. And of course, they're good for you. This group of grains has, both macro and micronutrients. Each of them sort of bring a different dimension and are very good at various life stages. We'll talk about them a little bit more in the context of the products that we make. Just to reiterate, right? This is why this is our reason for existence. The first 1,000 days of a child's life are the most important on many multiple dimensions, including nutrition, and it really determines long-term health outcomes. Millets, lentils, seeds, legumes are all natural sources of both micro and macronutrients, which are just, which really lend to diversity. What is really sad is that, in our research, we discovered that out of the 4 years that a doctor or even a pediatrician doctor study in medical school, they spend 4 days on nutrition, on anything preventative. Broadly, they're spending all of their time on curative, on fixing the problem. Food as preventative medicine really needs to be back on the plate because that is something that will help us in the long run. All of these are well-known facts between additives, artificial preservatives, colors, fillers, excessive amounts of salt and sugar, refined flours. All of these are causing cancer, diabetes at in a country like ours, with a very young population, we're seeing increases in diabetes and cardiovascular disease in alarming rates. And the good news, though, is that both large companies and small companies are beginning to see this and also, understand that people are beginning to, it's not just something that happened to somebody really far away. It's happening in the family, and hence the change has to come. In some ways, COVID has brought that even closer and central to the discussion, and hence companies are discovering that they need to solve this. So this was, what Shoravi, me and Umang felt was worth dedicating a significant portion of our life to. Right, this is a problem worth going after and trying to chip away at. So we're 3 friends, 2 mothers and a brother, who are on this mission, to get kids eating healthy. Johan loves to talk about our backgrounds, but I think what we have really learned in this journey is by meeting with so many people, from farmers to, to contract manufacturers, to food technologists, to pediatricians, to nutritionists who have really helped us think through, what a solution could look like. We love millets, we love lentils, and we really like to make them the way they're made at home. What do we make? We make lots of really fun colored packs. So most health food in India certainly looks really quite sad. It's in a brown paper bag with a sticker. And, it's almost like it's warning you that it's healthy. Somebody said on the previous panel, I think it was Class, said that health food is not necessarily not yummy. It can be really yummy, and we work very, very hard to make it yummy. It has to be yummy. It also has to be healthy and fun. These are children. You want them to develop a good relationship with food, and so we work really hard at getting that piece right. Our products range from from when a child starts eating solids at about 6 months of age. So we do sprouted grains from millets, multi-grain cereals, savory crepes, pancake mixes, malted drinks, which is basically stuff that you mix into milk or water to as an pre-evening snack, and lots of different kinds of snacks as well. All of these.
So sorry, no, I guess I have to break you a little here, because I think we can talk about, because I need us to get into the juicy details here, that because you're producing amazing snacks, and I've fed this to my kids and they love it, and you have this amazing vision, and you're using millet, which of course is using less water than the other grains out there. And the fun thing is that we have heard this story before, and then the story don't want to buy this, but there is a difference here. Customers are buying these like hot cakes, right? And you're growing your sales tremendously.
Yeah, we have sort of grown almost, since last year, we've grown about 300%. What we're seeing is, and actually in some ways, it's very sad, it's a global pandemic, but COVID really has brought that discussion of health to the living room, right, of every home. Immunity is people are worried about it now. They're wondering what they can eat to try and build on it. For us, the advantage was that we didn't have to go back into the kitchen and make something new. Our products already did all that, right? So it was a little bit about communicating that to our consumer and saying that, you don't have to, healthy food, high immunity food doesn't have to be yucky. I think this is fundamentally what we're trying to say and do, right? I guess we test all our products with our own children, who really have no sort of this thing in telling us that doesn't work, it's not yummy at all. So actually this holiday season, we're launching these cake mixes. These are all sort of wheat-free, no refined sugar, and sort of there's nothing artificial in them. They're as yummy as they look. So we're really quite excited about this product launch.
I am too. I have to send a couple of those to me.
Yes, absolutely.
No, but this is brilliant. And you also discovered that you could go, in this COVID crisis, you could go online as well with all your sales, basically.
That's right. So, before COVID, we were a half online, half offline company, which means half of our sales came from online channels, our own website, working with partners like Amazon and, online grocers and so on. And the others were actually your traditional retail stores. India went into lockdown, right? And so all of the stores were shut, and the online channels were sort of the only way to sort of get things going. And in some ways, it forced the consumer to look, even the ones that weren't buying online, to buy online. And it's just, it's in general, it's a much more convenient channel to work with, because you know exactly who you're selling to, what they bought last week, and your ability to provide a personalized solution to each consumer, almost to a point of one, right, is just outstanding. As opposed to when you're in a retail shelf, you don't know who's picking up the product.
Yeah, that's actually that would have to be our last final words in this session. Such a great company, and again, India is showing the way. I think a lot of good stuff is coming out of India, actually, and Slurrp Farms is one of them. You should try their products, buy them online, bring them to your kids, cook them. They will love it, and so will you, because there's a nice, yummy feeling in your stomach as well, because you've done something good for your kids and the world when you have the Slurrp product. This is an unabashed commercial for Slurrp, right? But I'm not sure.
That is the intention. That is the intention.
All the intention you should have, I think. And this is also a perfect segue over to the next segment, because this is a company based on values, making innovations. And the next session is all about value-based innovation. So thank you, Maghana, so much for coming here and sharing with us. Wish you the best of luck. With us, Maria Bustamante, who is a researcher at the Stockholm School of Economics on the topic of value-based innovation. We will also have Erik Allan Rapp, who is with us online, who is the head of the food initiatives from the Danish fund Vækstfonden, who recently got €1 billion or so in order to increase their green investments. Kind of a nice little wallet to toy around with. And Professor Roberto Papa from Italy, who I also hope to have here somewhere, who is heading up the European Increase program that's dealing with increased biodiversity in the world of food. So while we are getting Erik Allan, who I saw there briefly, and Professor Papa up on the screen here, I'd like to welcome Maria Bustamante.
Thank you for having me.
Good to have you here. I mean, Maria, you've been working with us for a long time, and we're always really amazed at what comes out of your research. And now you're doing a lot of value-based innovation research. Could you tell us a bit more about that value-based innovation research that you're doing?
Yeah, sure. And I think, first of all, values, the S is really important here. So when we talk about values, and what is this? It's the things we care about, whether that's sustainability, profit maximization. All companies, whether implicitly, explicitly, are pursuing values in their work. And more we see companies that are explicitly saying, okay, these are our values beyond an economic goal, but operationalizing them is still very difficult. Because values-based innovation really asks us to maybe reverse innovation management, as we've seen in the past, where instead of finding that value-added product or service, it's really, what do we care about? What is the future we want to see, and how do we drive and foster innovation to achieve that? So it really lifts innovation not just from competitive advantage and market differentiation, but something much more powerful. And if we take that in the context of the food system, we have a food system now that's largely built on this value of quantity. We have a lot of people we need to feed, very human-centered, but that's led to a lot of negative externalities in these practices of monoculture. So how do we transform that into something that aligns with biodiversity, sustainability values, health, food security? And that's a tough transition, because anytime something new comes into the world, whether it's an idea or product service, some other group has to value that. And so I think the questions I'm quite interested in terms of food companies, whether new or old, is, first of all, what are the values that we want to design this future food system around? How do you operationalize them? Not just in a mission statement, a business model, in your collaboration within a network, in your everyday operations, but also how do we convince the other groups that this is the values that we need to?
But now I have to object here, because I think that we all have those values already and have always had those values, but the companies have not operationalized those values. And now here comes then the tricky question. If you haven't operationalized those values and suddenly you realize that you have to, how fast can they move? Can they move at all? Or do you have to bring other people to the table who have had those values all the time? For instance, new players. Yeah. Can you transform yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are models out there. Of course, I think the work has to happen within the big companies as well as new. And I think it's the more the collaborations is, and we use values as not sort of lines of conflict, but as levers for collaboration, that's how we're going to move this forward and have the transformation.
Yeah, okay. So we have to work on several fronts at the same time. Erik Allan Rapp, you're with us now, straight from where? Copenhagen? Copenhagen, lovely to see you here. Okay, so I mean, of course, the big corps, the big investors are the ones who will ultimately change the world in the shortest time. You just got, what was it, €1 billion or so in order to invest in new food stuff? Or greens, I say green investments, but I assume everything will go to food, right? So.
Well, I wish it's part of a bigger process, but I think the important thing is that, well, first of all, I'm a partner with Vækstfonden, which is the sovereign Danish investment fund. So we're the company that is backed by the Danish state that's making investments in driving now, among other things, green transition. And we just received another allocation of in Danish crowns 10 billion Danish, which is about 1.4 billion euros, which is driving green transition. And as part of that process, over the last 9 months, we've been working on where we're going to deploy it. I joined Vækstfonden just over a year ago to make food tech investments and to invest in the whole food supply chain. And I've been part of the process here, one of the team members working on where we're going to allocate this money. We broke it down into 5 clusters based upon the drawdown report and based upon other analyses and based upon the strengths that we have in Denmark and the areas where we think we need to be strong. And one of these clusters of focus is clearly food and food supply chain. And within the food supply chain, the 2 biggest areas where you can make the most carbon impact are reducing waste and shifting people towards plant-based diets. These are the direct and indirect impact is the most massive impact you can create. And food and energy being the 2 biggest areas, but this is clearly one of the biggest areas. And so the next question that we have is how much we're allocating towards the food supply chain, how much we're allocating towards energy, et cetera, et cetera. I'm an equity person and I'm an investor. I'm a venture capitalist, and I'm interested in building value and driving change in the food supply chain. So as much as we can, shift towards this area, the better for everybody here. And it's
But now you said the word value without the S. Does values come in here anywhere? Can values lead to value?
100%. And so when I talk about building value, I'm not just talking about building financial value. I'm talking about creating a shifting change in the way we're consuming our food. The way all the specifics and the details, but the fact that we're wasting 1/3 of the food that's produced on this planet, and the fact that the consumption patterns that we've historically had are creating a huge overburden on the climate of the planet. So the value that I'm talking about is sustainable value. And on the financial side, if you do the rest of it right, the financial side will come. What we have to build is mission-driven companies that are pushing towards the same goal. One of the things that Maria said that I think is quite interesting also, and I think you said earlier, Johan, also, is that we need big organizations, we need states to move things. Where I would not disagree, but add on to that is that we need individual behavior to shift as well. Because in my book, it's the individuals who actually move the mountains collectively. And it's the individuals who actually start to move the governments as well.
That's absolutely, no, I'm totally with you there. The only question is who moves the individual, what comes first, the individual or the company, so to say, the hen and the egg. And that's down to the values again. Let's talk about them, because I guess, there are a lot of people out there saying, yeah, my values are as good as yours. It's kind of, they're not objective. They're only relative values. But are there some hardcore key values that must never be forgotten when we now do this transition?
Okay, well, aside from
Ellen, I'll stop you there and I'll start with Maria here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty easy to see. We talk about sustainability, and whether that's, of course, there's elements of financial sustainability for companies now, but also environmental, which we know is not working in the current food system. And I think as he talked about, having individuals as well, I think a company, and we talk about them a lot, but they do so many things interesting, like Impossible Foods. If you look at their mission, it's like save meat, save the planet. And the thing is, but what they use this value is not to say that people who eat meat are evil and they're bad. It's sort of, they took a step back and like, well, why do people eat meat? And they have this great saying, it's like, people don't eat meat, don't eat chicken because it's a chicken. They eat it despite the fact that it's a chicken. So it's like, but why? So if we can mimic the taste, the texture, the experience, people don't necessarily care if it's a chicken. So it's, again, not using this idea that what you do is bad and wrong, but how can we use this as a basis to inspire and innovate in a new way and think differently?
Okay, cool. Jörgensen, you agree?
I'm nodding here. I completely agree. I've come through my own personal roller coaster of, since my family and I started to go plant-based 5 years ago, being completely on one side of the spectrum and then going back and forth. I also agree that companies like Beyond Meat are necessary, if that's what you're saying, because this is what we can help create, a wedge in the door to open up people's mind towards moving towards a plant-based diet. But in order to do that, you have to provide something that is fairly healthy and that is inspiring and delicious and attractive, so that it's a proactive choice. No one wants to have a hammer hit on their head telling them how bad they are. They want to be inspired and informed as to where they want to go. So yeah.
One question I have in mind when we think about deploying 1.4 billion euros, which kind of is a lot, right?
Yeah.
it's and I see all these small new actors, players coming up there with their new sustainably oriented ideas, and I see the big, large companies out there, perhaps not as quick and nimble as the small ones are, but it is the big ones that are going to get the money, right?
You know, that's a very fair question, but and it's been part of the strategy work that we've been doing here. I mean, I'm not a big company investor. I'm a startup investor. And I'm not here to invest in very large companies that need to transition. What I'd like to do is to partner with them in order to help drive the startups, which are building the groundswell of the new technologies and new products that will drive the world in 10, 15 years. And so what we need to do is to be able to leverage our money and our resources in a way that allows us to activate and work with many small companies. Some of it will go to larger companies. In other clusters like energy that are more developed, they may be larger projects with larger amounts. But in the food space, it may be more capital going towards earlier, younger companies in order to drive this area. And that's where my lifeblood is, actually.
Wonderful. Oh, that's sweet music to my ears, at least. I would like to have a last question with you two before we have to stop. Can we bring something as fundamental as biodiversity, which kind of is a complex complex set of values, really? Can we bring that to the table and have everyone walk in that direction in a short period of time? And how do we do that? Maria, this is a tricky one, so I throw it at you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think we should understate how difficult it is. And I think, it'd be great to talk more actually to Eric Allen, because I think one of the things is how do actually, as an investor, I mean, you can't get away from, you need a return on your investment, right? But how do you actually have a value system that can align with these larger values with biodiversity? And these kinds of systems also need to be rethought, and that's not easy.
That's not easy. Eric Allen, you think so? Can we achieve biodiversity through your money?
Yeah. So biodiversity is one of the enabling themes that goes under every cluster that we're focusing on, actually, because it's so critical for the whole planet. I mean, monoculture is dangerous and biodiversity is missing, and we've seen that. I mean, all of us, when we were children growing up, we used to see insects, crashing on the window of our windshield of our cars. We don't see them anymore. And this is just a sign of where we've been heading. Everything that we're doing. I just closed an investment in a company in Denmark in the area of agro-robotics that is, among other things, helping biodiversity. And I think it's an area that we need to focus on, and everyone must be conscious of.
Lovely, lovely. Now let's. And I think this is such a good news because Roberto Papa is online. So good to see you, Professor Papa. And we have had some interesting conversations without you, and now we can have an even more interesting conversation with you.
I was here, in fact, but I was not able to show up.
Okay, cool. So then you know what we have been talking about. And shall we then, I would like to spend a couple of minutes then on actually just on you, because I want to hear more about the Increase project and how that, gives us more biodiversity.
Well, basically, Increase is focusing on the exploitation of the biodiversity of food legumes, and in particular of 4 species that are part of the traditional food in Europe and worldwide, which is common bean, chickpea, lentil, and lupin. And the idea is to focus on these species because in Europe, after the Second World War, basically we forgot the existence of legumes. But now clearly we need to go through that because we have a climate change issue. We have already a lot of interest from the consumers. We have, I think that an increase of the market in Europe about dairy alternatives and food meat alternatives of about 12 or 40% each year. So it's really a huge effect that is, let's say, somehow pushed by the consumers. And the idea is to develop this infrastructure that is basically using the cutting-edge technology of genomics, DNA sequencing, and also metabolomics that give a lot, and chemical analysis that give you some information about the nutritional value of many different varieties of legumes. We are talking about, for each species, about 4,000 accessions. And also, in this idea, we will develop a strategy to promote the participation to the evaluation about the users. Because one problem of the utilization of biodiversity is that biodiversity is basically unknown by the users. So our idea is first work on a database that should be that should be based on a centralized database, but also on decentralized database. And we will develop an approach that will promote the participation of users. And this will be tested in an experiment of citizen science involving European citizens. This will be launched in the next months, I think. And we will send 1,000 variety of European variety or local variety of common bean to European citizens. And they will grow in their own field, but also in their garden, in the terraces. And then they will participate to the evaluation using an app that will also give the possibility to share information and to get information and to create what in this way we will test this decentralized approach of database sharing that will be based on blockchain. And this will be very important because if the user is not able to have the information about his own interest, we will never be able to exploit the diversity. So we have to involve users in evaluation of genetic diversity. A second aspect will be we will have soon the meeting a stakeholder consortium. So the project will be associated to a stakeholder consortium on which we have already about 100 participants that will be very different from different types: food industry, plant breeders industry, citizen organization, NGOs, scientists that will collaborate with us. We will take an open science, open to the world and open to the, let's say, to the market as well, to promote the exploitation of the project results since we are producing the results. So we will not wait to release the information to the partners, but we will have already the stakeholder that will start exploit the information and the results of the project. Okay. I think that this participatory approach is very important to promote the utilization effectively.
Okay, cool. Because you underpin that project with clear values, of course, of what you want to achieve here, and increased biodiversity, increased use of old school stuff in order to promote new school nutrition, and then of course a lot of companies that can build on that, like Slurrp farms that we heard before, right? So it's really encouraging, and of course then hopefully Erik Allen's money can be deployed in a good way into the results of this project, right? So a question here then, Mr. Papa. Now you're doing a project here with some legumes and open science, and once you have proven this to be a success, which I no doubt it will be, what will be the next project then? What is the other stuff that we can promote that will increase biodiversity for us?
I think that we need to develop also because this project will be a project that will build the infrastructure. But then we need to have all the things associated. That's why we start with this stakeholder consortium that is somehow a starting point of exploitation. But we need to bring the industry, private sector, public sector to use the data that we will produce and put that again in the system. So that's why we speak about intelligent collection, because the idea is that this approach will promote the development of information that will be a learning process, and then will grow up. So in the way is that what we need is the exploitation procedure, which is, let's say, for instance, developing new varieties, developing new products, and things like that. But possibly highly associated to the agriculture of Europe, because it doesn't make sense to me that we just use the plant's products as a kind of, and then we destroy the product and we just forget that we have agriculture. So to have a sustainable future, we need to think that we need to have also sustainable agriculture. So we need to promote a combination of the food and the products that will be developed in a sustainable way.
Lovely. Sweet music to my ears once again today. Thank you all for participating in this lovely panel, and I wish you the best for the rest of your day. Sorry to close this one, but we have to move on in the program. Thank you again, Professor Roberto Papa, Erik Allen Rapp, and you, of course, Maria Bustamante.
Thank you.
Good to see you again, Terry. How's life in confinement in New York?
Nice. How are you?
We're doing just fine. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm watching everybody speaking like yesterday and today, and just being inspired all the way.
Lovely.
It's really interesting. Yeah, interesting topics.
Yeah, now it's your turn to inspire us, because
Okay.
I mean, basically the reason why we're here today, because you inspired me a lot when we had a discussion regarding a concept we spoke about in one of the tracks yesterday. It's called
Right.
cynical culture, and I have to
Yes.
describe that a little in order to make this even more dynamic and thoughtful, hopefully for the viewers at least.
Right.
Cynical culture is a method where you use hyper diverse ecosystems in order to produce, hyper yields. Essentially, you can produce, if you let 1,000 various types of plants grow together in a field, you get an enormous yield, but also fantastic nutritional components of those plants that you grow. And when you grow things in that way, you start to wonder, what should I do with it? And Teru, this is where you come in, because you're the
Right.
first cynical culture farmer in the US. And you didn't stop
Correct.
on
Right.
cynical culture there.
As far as I know.
Yeah.
Yes. So yes, we started our farm. I met Masa back in like 2010, and then started to learn about what he's working on, which was cynical culture, and I was fascinated. It was the first farming method I've encountered that produced high yield, lots of vegetable, but at the same time enriching the biodiversity. And most of the farming method I know does it's trade-off, right? You get lots of food and then you lose biodiversity through fertilizer runoff or pesticide or things of that nature. So I was really fascinated by it. So we started doing, I wanted to try it. So we started with my friends in San Diego. I started the cynical culture farm. I wanted to show you the photos. So this was, can you see the screen?
Yeah, we see your screen.
Okay, so this was back in 2016. We started with just bare nothing at all in a very kind of desert, semi-arid climate in San Diego. And we started with this lemon tree. And then without any fertilizer or pesticide, we did need to add some water to it because it's so dry. And then just densely planted about like up to like 50 to 80 different varieties of vegetables. And we start to see the effects in like very early, from the early too. And then we start to see the actual green come back. Remember, it was the desert. And then now, this is back, this is 2020. It's like food forest, basically. And I see the firsthand how the cynical culture works. And I see a lot more insects that I've never seen before come to my farms, and we get harvest every all year round. We get tomatoes, basils, orange juice. Like basically every meal we go out, we can go out into the garden. If you have, say, like a rice and a fish, you can go out to the garden and pick something to fix vegetables. And then that's when I start to realize there's so many varieties of vegetables that we had to have some kind of way to turn this into a delicious food. So normal people can try this at home and then bombard it with the harvest of all the different kinds of vegetables. And then how do we eat them? So the idea I come up with was called Table to Farm. And we wanted to mix the creative minds of chefs and then this biodiverse farm, which is high yield, low maintenance, and promotes, it basically have a net positive impact on the biodiversity. And then combine those together in one place, because in my view, the producer and consumers been divided for so many years. And I wanted to put these two elements in one place and create a new culture based on that. And that's why I'm calling it table to farm. Farm to table, we get from the nature, we get the food and we bring it to the table inside of the restaurant. But as we all know, COVID-19 kind of forced us to not do that. New York is trying out 25% indoor dining since yesterday, but we'll see how that works out. But indoor dining is not an safe option at the moment. So I wanted to, I designed Table to Farm to do three things. One is to have a safe platform for chef to cook, and then the diner to come in and enjoy the food that's from around them, like it's surrounding them. Basically, you'll be in a Table to Farm, you're inside the culture farm or any kind of biodiverse farm, and the food is all around you. And it's an experience-based dining. So you go in with your chef and then looking at all these vegetables that's growing all together, learning about biodiversity, and then pick the seasons, the best ripened fruits or vegetables, and then chef will turn that into a beautiful plate of food, and then they share the meal in all outside. So Table to Farm is a restaurant concept that's designed specifically to be outside from the get-go. Okay, that's what I'm working on right now.
No, I think Teru, this is actually amazing, and I think we just have to wrap this up now. But to me, bringing the table to the farm, putting the farmer at the core of it is actually something that's touching a lot of discussions we've had already during these sessions. And what can you do in order to put biodiversity and the farms at the core and not just be the stupid deliverers of standardized goods that they are forced to be.
Right.
So I think this is a brilliant way of thinking about food, much in the same way as our great friend Josh spoke about yesterday about doof, food backwards, the stuff we shouldn't eat. And here you're talking about putting the table in a form of definitely not doof, but food. Thank you so much, Teru, for sharing.
Okay, thank you so much, Johan.
Soon again and experience the table farm. Okay, cheers.
For sure. Yep. Cheers.
Lovely. We have two more short demos before you can drink your coffee. I'm sorry we're running a little late, but it's not as much as it usually is, which I think should be very good news to all of you. Zero Fertile, Helena, are you here somewhere?
Hello.
Ah, there you are. Welcome.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So tell us, what is Zero Fertile?
Well, I'll share here my screen. Here. Okay. So I will start with a quick question. Have you had a cup of coffee today? Well, maybe you have a little bit of sugar in it, and maybe even some milk. Well, for this cup of coffee, there were at least 3 farmers involved. Farmers face the challenge of feeding our population every day, but their biggest challenge is yet to come. By 2050, we are expecting to be 10 billion people in the world. So we will need to increase our food production by 50%. But we don't have any more farmable lands. So what we need to do is increase our productivity, our crop yield. We will need then to take care of our soil. And to do that sustainable, we need sustainable fertilizers. So here's our dream. What if we could transform industrial waste into smart fertilizers? That's our proposal, making the chain of production more sustainable. When we burn coal or biomass for energy production, we generate ashes. Ashes are industrial waste of various environmental impacts. Through this ash, we are able to synthesize zeolites that contain in their structure the nutrient potassium, and then can be used as a fertilizer in agriculture. But how does this work? Well, the potassium ions are in the structure of zeolite and are and are released as the plant grows. So that means slow and controlled release of potassium, and that it will be available throughout the harvest. We have already validated that with our work. But zeolites are also capable of taking ions of ammonium and potassium from the soil and retaining them for then releasing when the plant needs. That means nutrient efficiency. Zeolites are also capable of water retention. That means that the water will be there when the plant needs. That means drought resistance. Zeolites are also capable of removing heavy metals. That means that they can immobilize these heavy metals and also decrease the metal accumulation in plants. So ZeoFertil is a sustainable, efficient, and smart fertilizers. Here's our team. Camila and I, we are both chemical engineers, but what I really want to say to you is that we both came from families of farmers. So we are passionate about sustainable farming. Thank you very much for your attention. We are ZeoFertil.
Thank you so much. And this is a really good idea. We need to, of course, take away all bad fertilizers and replace them with good fertilizers out there.
Yes,
so
sustainable ones.
Contact with ZeoFertil, where do we turn?
Sorry?
If you want to get in contact.
Oh, okay. I will put in the chat our website. Also follow us on Instagram and on Facebook. We are creating content to explain how soil health, how works soil science in words that everyone can understand.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Elena, for sharing this.
Thank you very much for having me.
The best of luck. This is needed deeply.
Thank you.
Move on to the next one. Thank you so much. Nina Berger from Solfoil. Yes, there you are. Hello, Nina. How are you?
Hi. Thank you. How are you?
I am just fine. I'm waiting for my cup of coffee, but in order to do that, we need to boil some water. How should I do that?
I will tell about it.
Perfect. Go ahead, Nina. The stage is yours.
Yeah. So, hi from Finland. My name is Nina Berger, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Solfoil. We create ultra-portable solutions for outdoor heating, cooking, and pasteurization. But let me tell first the story how our business got started. One beautiful summer day, we went with our family and friends to an island and wanted to grill our lunch with a portable grill, but unfortunately it was not allowed due to risk of wildfire, and our warm lunch was cancelled. Soon after that, my husband bought this solar heated water boiler and started to heat some meatballs and sausages in the sunlight in our balcony. I thought that to really take it outdoors easily, the product must be lightweight, compact, and flexible, and not to go broken. Something like an oven bag with the same solar heating technology, and our invention was born, a package with integrated solar heater coating. This heating pouch was our first handmade prototype and proof of concept. These kind of pouches can heat the content to 100 degrees and more, just by placing the product in the sunlight. All the products heat by conduction when this black coating is exposed to the sunlight. And all the applications are reusable and recyclable and always, or they are always recyclable and as sustainable as the latest technology allows. So now we have just got first industrially made prototypes of our first product, reusable water heating pouch. And we will get customer feedback from outdoor, emergency preparedness, and humanitarian markets about these. And next step is piloting, and after that, we will scale up to other applications and markets, for example, regarding food systems. And we will sell our products B2B as white label and license the technology to company-specific needs. So our team has 3 founders and 3 advisors, and we are driven by thinking how to make a significant positive impact on the individual societies, climate, and food system. And we seek like-minded people to accelerate our business. So thank you so much. Happy to talk further.
Now, I must ask you a follow-up question. How long does it take to boil a liter of water?
Yes, so it will be something like, well, really for boiling, it will be more like half an hour. But for example, our first customers will be users of freeze-dried meals or water that is needed for the coffee. So it will be like 15-20 minutes to get it to the temperature that is needed for that, like 60-70 degrees.
Yeah, and I can just carry it on the back on my backpack, I guess, right? So,
sure.
And I don't even need this, a clear sky for this, because this works in a cloudy environment as well, right?
Well, this coating really needs like infrared that is from the sunlight or some other infrared source. So, but it has to be bright like a sunshine. So when you look outside and you think like, okay, it's a sunny weather, that's a good weather for solar products. So, these, of course, the best markets are in the places where the sun is shining, and that's luckily in most of the places in the world except here in the north.
Oh yes, that's again an example of something that can be, brought forward in the Nordics and then brought to the world with a great success. Thank you so much, Nina, for coming here and sharing. Lovely project. Best of luck and take care, and talk to you soon, I hope.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. So it's time for coffee in this track. All the other tracks have had their coffee, but we will, say 5 minutes. 5 minutes, that's enough for a quick cup of coffee before we get into the last part of the home stretch.
Johan wanted me to just quickly introduce what the SDG2 Advocacy Hub is and the Chef's Manifesto. So we basically work on advocacy around food, agriculture, and nutrition. And one of the things we've done is work with chefs to connect them to the Sustainable Development Goals. And so we have this plan called the Chef's Manifesto, which chefs help create, connecting the work that chefs do to the SDGs.
That's lovely. That's lovely. And of course, we have one of the big questions for us all in the food system today, where all the chefs, of course, are key players, is the notion of biodiversity. Because there are so many things we need to eat in order to get the planet into shape, and of course ourselves into shape again. But it's kind of tricky to cook them because it's, there are thousands of veggies out there, and how do you know what to do with them? For that, you need a chef. And I think, you've been working with this for a while in South Africa in order to bring all the goodies of the South African land into the kitchen. So could you tell me, how do you work with all these new, slightly unknown products and turn them into plate gold?
I think, when was it? Last year, there was the Knorr Future 50 Foods that was launched. So to date is 1 year old. And I have learned a lot from the Future 50 Foods. And this is a report of, ingredients with a collection of diverse plant-based ingredients from around the world. And these ingredients, they help to boost the nutritional value of our meals whilst helping reduce the environmental impact on our food supply. And, it has inspired me to cook better, to diversify my meals, my diet. And it is very simple. So when I started by swapping. So the easiest way from reducing your 50% of animal protein to plant-based, cut it in half. So I will give you an example. Let's say you want to do spaghetti bolognese or cottage pie. So you need beef mince or you need lamb mince. So I would take 50% of the protein from the animal and I would use the lentils, I would use the chickpeas, I would use the, black-eyed peas. And I'm not trying to reinvent the wheels. The dishes are the dishes that we eat every day. So the only thing that I need to do is swap them. And, you know, we even try, I'm trying it with, you know, a lot of our canteens, because they're always saying that, you know, food is expensive now, and then they need to take their prices up, so they cannot feed their people. So what I'm doing now is like I'm giving them alternatives to reduce the cost, but at the same time, serve healthy meals in a different way.
That's really good to hear. I mean, we had you know, after lunch here, we had an intro to the afternoon with a chef called Gustav Johansson from Sweden. He's a Swedish chef. He's talking a lot about how can you use vegetables to cook traditional Swedish dishes, which are, you know, meat-based to a great extent. You know, so you really mean that you can use these replacements and actually give the same or a better experience from the food?
Yes, and I think, you know, you will definitely feel better, because now, you know, you eating healthy. It's a beginning of eating healthy. And once you used to the taste, to the flavor, to the textures, then you can go maybe from 50 to 80, and then you can go all the way. But I think it's the healthier way. And I mean, we need to be doing this by 2050. So this is the beginning. So how do we get people to do it? Let's start swapping.
Cool.
And I think it's also, you know, one of the things, Johan, just to jump in, I think it's also tastes great. You know, the thing is, some of these ingredients, we don't know, we've not tried them. We've not got the textures from them. And when we work with chefs, they put them together into these dishes that it actually can become more interesting on the palate. And I know, Pinky, I've eaten some of the things you've cooked. And as you put some of these kind of ingredients in, it actually really starts to create a different experience for people,
actually,
which I think is really important.
Because what we're always looking for when we're out eating or cooking ourselves is, oh God, shall I have that again? That same old boring stuff again? But then suddenly there are people out there that can show us that, yeah, well, you can cook fantastic food that I haven't tried before, and most of that will actually come from veggies. So actually, we can enjoy our way to a better and more sustainable society through the hands and talents of great chefs. And how can we get more chefs to lead the way, like you, Pinky, and like you, Paul, are advocating for in the SG2 initiative here? So how do you empower the chefs?
I think we need to be talking their language. You know, we need to explore innovative options for improving limited knowledge of chefs about biodiversity of food and agriculture. I mean, how much do they know? Where do they fit in? What can they do? How can they assist so that we reach this goal? So how do they collaborate with the farmers? What should they be looking for when going to visit or partner with a farmer? So we need to increase the education and training of the chefs at all levels to improve the knowledge of biodiversity of food and agriculture. And, you know, the source of information should be easier to access. I mean, take, for instance, COVID-19. COVID-19, you know, information is everywhere. It's done in GIFs, it's done in songs, it's done in radio and TV. So we need to do that. We need to make it work for the young chefs coming into the hospitality industry. And so that, you know, they have a fear of missing out if they don't know anything or if they don't cook, you know, this kind of ingredients and to help biodiversity. So we need to involve these young chefs, and they will help us in communicating the right way and landing the right message we intend to share with them.
I love this. I really love this, because COVID, of course, we pour down enormous amounts of resources into handling the COVID situation, whereas perhaps the biodiversity situation is an even worse situation, right? So to me, basically, the chefs of the biodiversity revolution or handling is, of course, the same as the doctors of the COVID handling, right? So how can we then not just empower the chefs, but also make everyone understand that it's so vital that we actually start eating more plants and more varied, plants, and that the chefs actually are the they're the conduits for this to happen. Please give me quick solutions for this because we don't have time.
Yeah. So one thing I would throw in quickly is, I think we need to think about, it's like anything. You need to incentivize it. So you need to look at the training. So often in the way that we train, there's kind of been a hierarchy in training. We need to actually go back and reverse that. We need to look at plants forward. We need to look at, prioritizing investigation, giving that information, putting it in front of chefs and making it clear. We also need to look at value, not just volume. And so there's a question there about what's the ingredient do for us? How does it help us? How does it help the environment? And so this is like about the value that it brings to the person, to your enjoyment, to the farm, but not just about volume. Like often in food, sometimes it can be, we want bigger, we want more, we want this. And that can lead to us, using key crops over and over again because we have to get them down in price. And that's a lack of biodiversity. And so it's about trying to acknowledge the value in the biodiversity.
So Piki, we just heard from chef developer in the US here when he spoke about not bringing the farm to the table, but actually bringing the table to the farm, where you should say, yeah, put the table on the farm. You go there together with the chef. You explore what's there right now. You cook a delicious meal together, and you learn from it, and then you enjoy it perhaps together as well. Have we chefs, or we chefs? I shouldn't say we chefs. I almost feel like one because I hang out so much with them and I eat all their food. But have we as chefs, or you as chefs, and have we been too focused on the restaurant side of things? Could we achieve more by going out into society more and engaging with people outside our restaurants?
Oh, definitely yes, because if you do not engage and connect with people, and like I said, the chef would go to the farmer and get whatever they need, but is the farmer farming in a sustainable way? So we need to give the tools to the chefs to know what type of things they need to look out for to make sure that the farmer is doing the right thing. Because if the farmer is not doing the right thing, we're not going to support the farmer.
I think those will have to be the final words because those are powerful ones. Thank you so much, Pinky and Paul, for joining us here in Stockholm today and for giving of your knowledge. I look forward to seeing you out there soon again. Take care and have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Thank you very much. Bye.
So over to our next panel here. We have a set of really, really interesting people to discuss how we can get more innovation into the world of food. So up on stage, please. So the question here, can we find new ideas and new entrepreneurs in order to help us fix the biodiversity problem? Carolina, is that possible?
Of course we can. And right now you see the biggies like Microsoft, they're developing a planetary computer, an AI for Earth and species, and also Google Earth are developing something similar. But what I lack, since I look into early stage investment, early stage companies, there are almost none of these ideas within these smaller companies.
So the entrepreneurs they don't care about biodiversity?
I think they find it a bit difficult. It's very much up here. And it's a little bit where climate change was 5 to 10 years ago. There are no metrics and it's difficult because we use the word conservation and preservation when we talk about biodiversity, but we need to get words like augmentation, innovation, and enhancement of nature in order to make it more interesting. And we need also to put more tech solutions and innovation, because then we will also get the capital that is willing to take the risk, and then we will also have the entrepreneurs.
Okay, so it's a matter of words now in the beginning. We shouldn't talk about
not only
reactionary, type of words, but forward-looking words. But Anna, I mean, you've been working a lot with biodiversity in the realms of WWF, and do you see a lot of solutions coming from the market to the issue, or is it still just a problem that someone needs to solve?
Well, this is an emerging area, and we had a seminar just last week in the Sustainable Supply Chain Initiative with business people from the major food companies in Sweden, where they were processing biodiversity aspects, and we see that there are specific tools that you can use already today. There are the big certifications, there are biodiversity measures on the arable land, there are measures to halt deforestation, and that is not rocket science, but we may need these technologies to monitor, to be able to report and show a progress. For example, to develop systems that actually help us with how do we deliver on increased biodiversity in the agricultural landscape, not just around the landscape, but on and in the fields.
On and in the fields. Perfect segue over to you, Madeleine. Isn't that what you're doing? On and in the fields. Axe Foundation, of course, you're working a lot with your experimental farm, Torsåker, and please give us a little of what you're doing there, because it's interesting.
So we run a test farm, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a farm for testing, not production, and we test a number of things like new crops, new crop systems, new feed for animals. Also, we try a lot of old varieties of vegetables and legumes and grains, because we have, as everyone else, identified the danger in very few species, very few kinds, because that is a risk. There is a strength in numbers, and we are decreasing the numbers and therefore decreasing our strength. So we need the variety. And I think that what you said is very interesting, because you said we need to take it into the field, because I worry about the little things. Which in this case is the microorganisms in the soil. Because if we talk about biodiversity, in one spoonful of healthy soil, there's between 600 and 800 million individual organisms in that little spoonful, if the soil is healthy. And a healthy soil is necessary for a healthy plant. And a healthy plant is necessary probably for the nutrient contents in the crop for our health. So there are many reasons to look at what's going on in the soil and in the farm, and we need the diversity, because otherwise we lose our strength.
But can you measure that?
That's the thing. That is an area that needs to be more researched, because we know that is something that we are super interested in at Axe Foundation, because we know that soil health will, of course, affect the health of the plant. And there are some evidence, some early evidence showing that a healthy plant will also help your body to take up the micronutrients and the macronutrients of the plant. But there's so much more research that needs to be done in this area.
But we do know already now, you'd say that healthy soil gives a plant that's better for us.
No, I said healthy soil gives a healthy plant, which is probably
yes.
Probably.
Well, let's just assume that for ease of thinking here. That means that a healthy soil should actually provide plants that are more expensive.
Yes, and that's where it's interesting for the market, or it could be at least, because the health argument for the individual consumer is stronger than the environmental argument. You're willing to pay more money for something that will improve your health than that will improve some environment somewhere that you don't really know anything about. So if you want to put a price on it, that would be one way for the farmer to do it, to show the connection between their farming practices and their healthy soil and their better product.
This is interesting. And of course, once you've done that and you expanded here in Sweden and Stockholm, you need to go to the US, because that's the big prize, which of course brings us to the last people on the panel here, last person on the panel, which is Anna. No, the last person on the panel is actually Nadav, who just joined us. But I'll give the word first to you, Anna, because you're heading up the Swedish American Chamber of Commerce in New York, and probably is the most connected Swede in the US. And you've started something called the Sustainology Conference, which brings together everyone who works with sustainability, data, environment, policy, etc.
And the idea that doing good is actually profitable.
Exactly. Do you see a lot of movement in that sector in the US these days?
Do I see a lot of
movement around the sector of biodiversity and you know,
right
good
now
business?
What we're seeing in the US is a lot of chaos,
okay.
as you might have
okay,
followed.
so,
you know, and I think some concern, I think for all of us who care about this, is that the attention has gone away from how important these issues are. And we are in a deregulatory environment right now with the current administration. And I don't want to get political, but hard not to. And where, for me, there's this sort of triple of the regulatory, the policy, and the business side of it. And now I live the business side of it. I used to live in the regulatory and public service part of it. And you can only regulate so much. You need to incentivize. And that's the part that needs to happen there. There has to be the incentive that, yes, you're going to not only feel well and not only worry about yourself, but worry about a bigger world, but there's also business and profit to be had here. And, you know, people always think in those terms, but it's true. And that's what we do, is we try to encourage entrepreneurs and startups to go in the direction of a social consciousness with the understanding that there's profit to be had there.
But to me, I think this is kind of strange, because when you look at it from the analytical perspective, is, yeah, fixing planet Earth should have kind of an immense award to it. How come we don't see then more entrepreneurs, you know, jumping into this? Nadav, you're with us now, and you see more than most people out there. So do you see a lot of people working on biodiversity right now? You have to unmute yourself, I think. No, Nadav, we'll try to get you on, but you hear us. Thumbs up if you hear us. Yes, okay, you hear us at least. Okay, thumbs up if you see a lot of cool companies in the you know, biodiversity sphere. Okay, that's too bad. That's okay. If you say so, then I truly think it's bad, because you see most of it. But then, you know, what could we do then in order to get more of these entrepreneurs out there working on this kind of important topic? What should we do? Data. You said data.
I mean, what I said before, you already see Microsoft and Google Earth, or Google, they're already hunting for the data. They're not hunting for the big animals that we used to do. They're hunting for the data. And that's, I think, one thing. But we also need to know the basis of why biodiversity is important, because I think that people think, oh, it's the spotted owl there, or it's the little frog there that's destroying my land or doing something that I can't do. So I think that we need to understand that we have over 20,000 edible plant species in the world. 20 of those make up 90% of the calories that we eat. So what we eat is really, really, really small amount of the plants. So one of the biggest problems is that our diets, what we eat, how we eat, what we focus on in eating. Since World War II, we haven't really been focusing on anything else than yield, not nutritional yield, but yield in kilos.
But you're talking about then of you know, putting some sort of a number to it, what this could be beneficial.
Exactly. Because right now, biodiversity is where we had climate change 5 to 10 years ago, and we didn't have numbers on that either. But now we need to put something like bionet gain. How can we augment nature, like we heard yesterday from Masa at Cynico Culture? How can we actually make nature better than it is today? How can we provide premises that will make nature better? And we both for the animals, because right now we're putting the premises so we're just deteriorating nature. And in the end, 75% of all the crops that we eat need pollination. So there's no food left for us.
No food left. Anna, you put numbers to everything at the WWF.
Well, actually, we think it's quite important to set targets. And what you are saying now, and what I agree with, is that the biodiversity issues is being lifted, and we who work with the planetary boundaries for the protecting biodiversity and everything, we need to say to you innovators and entrepreneurs that we need you. We need you to do this and this and this. And the companies also need to give that signal. And they can do that by, for example, like H&M, this clothing company, are setting targets for biodiversity, saying that they want to be biodiversity positive with the cotton that they're growing.
Can I just add one thing?
Please.
The picture that we took up here, I asked for it because it's the Sustainable Development Goals.
Yeah.
And it's very simple. If we don't have the biosphere, which is the ground or our base, we don't have the economy. It's very simple.
And it's quite, I mean, you might also get some kind of a fatigue. Oh, you were talking to us about climate, now you come to us with biodiversity. So we have to get this positive stuff into the dialogue, the positive terminology.
But in the beginning, they understand risk, and then you get the opportunities.
Okay, that's it. Well, what do you say, Madde?
Someone said that it's a matter of wording, which sounds kind of ridiculous in one way, because, you know, it's a catastrophe and it's a crisis. So why would it matter what we call it? But it is important. And maybe to get the attention of the entrepreneurs, we need for them to be able to realize the opportunities. I mean, all the chronic diseases of our era, which is, of course, heart disease and diabetes and cancer and obesity. I mean, they all have their roots in nutrition. So that would be like another sort of segue into this area, because if nutrition is responsible for all that, and we know that the nutrient contents are actually declining, then you can start thinking about what is it that helps nutrition along. And since the biosphere, it's all connected, so it goes with the animals, with the microbes, with the big mammals, everything is connected. And that's also one of the reasons I think that it's hard to grasp this thing. First, it's climate change. Now it's biodiversity. It's all linked. So it is complicated.
It is complex.
It's super complicated.
It's kind of interesting. Anna, well, it's complex right now in the US. We all know that. And but at the same time, the US is one of the most biodiversity rich countries on the planet. Sweden is one of the most biodiversity poor countries on the planet. Do we need something like a GDP or gross biodiversity product or something like that?
Well, it's a little bit of a factor of land mass and size.
Well, yeah, sure. But Sweden is kind of large too, so.
But I think, though, what you do see in the United States, which is frightening, is these large farms that, you know, have taken up so much land mass and produce more food than is needed. And that is not dealt with, because it's an enormous issue in all of this, and why the whole switch doesn't happen. We know why, but that the kind of thinking that we're talking about, and I agree. I think, you know, people, okay, you talked to us about sustainability, you talked about, you know, environmental degradation. Now you're throwing biodiversity crisis at us. I mean, it's, you know, for people, there's no end to all of this. And so I think the messaging there too is one that is almost front and center here, is how do we message this to people so that it's not just one more crisis. And if you're looking at the United States, where if it's not burning up, it's being consumed by protests or by, you know, a political landscape that's very messy. And so I think people need a positive message in all of this, which I think we were saying before, that it's not just saying this is a huge crisis. There's something actually very positive that can be done here, and everyone can contribute to that.
Lovely. You raised your hand there.
Yeah, well, I wanted to pick up on these big agricultural landscapes that are monocultures that we see in parts of the US. And we just published a veggie guide, and we have a criterion there for pesticides. We know that pesticides are used to enable these monocultures and large elevated production, but they're really harmful to biodiversity. And I think a future agricultural system needs to look at an agricultural system that is less dependent on pesticides. And we know that there is organic. We can easily promote organic, but we also need to develop the farming systems that are not organic to use less pesticides and to develop innovation around farming systems that actually function with less and better chemicals.
Carolina, you raised your hand here.
Yes, but because I think that if we're going to be 10 billion people in 2050, we are not going to only need the conventional farming systems. I think we will definitely need the vertical farms. We will need everything from precision fermentation and those kind of technologies, cell-based culture, meat, and so forth. I think that's part of what we need to do also. And so I don't think that if we continue at this pace, the earth is not going to be able to sustain all these people and the food that we're supposed to eat.
Okay, no, it's absolutely. I'm with you. But the question now, because we need to close this panel, is the communication. I think you're absolutely correct. The communication. Is it augment or is it biodiversity mining? You can mine biodiversity for great things. Perhaps a bad word used in context of biodiversity. I don't know, but it's you get my point, right? So what is it that we should communicate?
I would love augment, because I think if we can make nature better than it is today. And we can also, by all these technologies that already exist, we can measure and we can get much more deeper knowledge of how plants, how microbes, how insects actually move and what they need, their habitats, and we can create that in a much, much better sense. So as soon as you build something, you're like, okay, so how do we gain biodiversity while we're building this? So I think there's so many things we can do.
Cool. Anybody else with a different view? No, let's augment. Let's make nature better.
Yeah.
Let's make nature great again. Let's do that. Okay. Thank you all for joining today. Lovely. Looking forward to the next set of conversations with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. Let's move over to a couple of demos. Hi there, Ina. How are you?
Hello. Good. Thank you. Well, great area.
Ah, cool. Lovely.
The Balkans are with you. Sweden Foodtech Big Meet is quite an event for us, and we've joined beginning actually, and I'm happy to be here with you. Thank you so much for this invitation.
Okay, lovely. So tell us more about the stuff that you're doing.
Well, basically our company is an organic food tech development boutique. And we've come up with a few biotechnologies, which we are hoping to use for changing the food industry. I've been listening to all these panels and opinions and everything for the second day already in a row. And I see that what we do is basically very much serving to these purposes that are announced as the targets for the food industry, food tech, let's say from now on, and the technologies that we've come up with are really solving the problems. Like, for example, the technology that I want to share with you today is our fermented liquid plant extracts, and that is everybody speaks about fermentation so much, and we do it on daily basis, and it's fun, it's pleasure, it's health, it's great stuff, and there's a lot of passion in this. And so what we do is one of the projects that we have, and I will be more than happy to share in a bit more details, as much as it is possible within such a short time.
Go ahead, I'll stop you.
All right. Well, our technology is based on mechanical pressing and fermentation. So what we do, we take a herb, for example. I know that in Sweden you guys love this salvia, right? I'm not sure about the Swedish name, but it's called salvia, right? And then and out of such dry herb we get, which is very good for all sorts of microbiological processes and so on. You get liquid spice, something like this, and this is so safe, natural, and anti-allergic, and so on, so that you can do this. I'll better demonstrate. You see, it's a full pipette. It's approximately like 1 milliliter, and I'm allergic. If I do this with essential oil, just like this, I will end up with the hospital. I mean, this is a big issue, and if it's possible, I would really like to show the this slide that I've shared with your team on the screen. Yeah. Well, meanwhile, let me share some some figures. Approximately 1/4 of the global population these days is allergic or food intolerant to whatever food ingredients. One of the major, based on the research, one of the major reasons to that are artificial ingredients, are different technologies which take raw material which is absolutely natural and cool in all senses, and then they take out some compounds out of it and produce ingredients which are serving in the food industry, sometimes semi-legally, but whatever, that's a separate topic. And then they cause a lot of side effects, and this is a big issue because the numbers are getting really, really terrific now. The number of food allergies of intolerance based on food ingredients is becoming, especially in kids, is becoming a real disaster. Everybody's so terrified by COVID-19, but let me tell you, the numbers from food allergies in kids are much more terrifying, like really much more terrifying. And because of that, the technology that we've focused on is now like giving an alternative to all sorts of essential oils, oleoresins, different extractions based on alcohol and so on, that are now widely used in the food industry, as I mentioned, semi-legal sometimes, but big topic. And you can use them instead, or just alternatively. And the market of such plant extracts is huge. Oh, thank you so much. We have the screen, and second slide, please, because that's just the the problem.
It's horrible.
Yeah, the side effects that I've been referring to are like it's a huge number of terms, but then the most frequent that you hear are autoimmunity, allergies, intolerance, intoxication, metabolic disorders. Then this is food and cosmetics, because everything is related to microbiome. So basically, this is microbiome concentrated technology.
Okay.
And
you can actually help us alleviate that, Rina. I think that's really interesting. And I mean, because we need to move on now, but if you want to learn more about this great stuff that you're doing and actually replacing all of these allergens out there, so where do we turn for a deeper discussion?
Well, our website is cmykingredients.com, and it would be great to somehow expose it on Foodtech. It's not on the slides
we
here.
Put this up in the chat, right? Alex, could you help us with that?
Yeah, that'll be great. Yeah, the chat would be perfect in this case. And the products that we've developed are winning CL Innovation. We've been listed as one of the top 500 food tech companies recently, and so on. I mean, in this sense, I would just want to highlight that all the food ingredients, as it has been highlighted for 2 days already, all the food ingredients are really, really important, because we are what we eat. And then when we face different difficulties, complications, health issues, and so on, a big chunk of it is in the food that we consume and in how we build the value chain and so on. And then what our company has focused on is basically improving this value chain, and especially in the processing part of it.
That's perfect. Thank you so much for your good work, Irina, and I look forward to reading more about you and the other funky stuff that you're doing beyond CMYK ingredients. Oh, please have a seat here. Let's have a discussion. Shall I hold something here?
Well,
I hold that one.
Glass of wine.
Yes, I'd love to have a glass of wine. And it's not that we usually drink at this time of day. Well, sometimes you do, right? But it is for a purpose. And while you're pouring, please pour some for yourself as well. So what are we tasting here now?
We're tasting a Riesling from Sula.
Sula, okay.
India, which is the winery that I've been part of building up over the last 13 years.
That's pretty darn cool, because Cecilia is, of course, way too modest, but she is actually the wine queen of India. And when you think about being a wine queen of India, you don't think very much of it, because you don't think India is a wine country. But India is a wine country right now.
It's
indeed about to become the next Australia in the world of wine, I'd say. And actually, you started the whole thing with Sula a bunch of years ago. And I think that's super cool. So tell us a bit more. How come you start a vineyard in India?
Because that's where there are endless opportunities. And being in Sweden where I was, and 10 million people, I didn't see that was enough to make a difference and to become someone that people will listen to. And India has 1.4 billion people. So endless opportunities. And also, India has the largest population of young people. 50% of them are under 25 years old. So in terms of educating and changing and creating the future with the future, India is definitely a place to be.
I think this is interesting, because this is verification of what we said over the last 2 days, that if we're going to change anything, don't change them in Sweden, do change them in India instead, or China. We're in India in this case. And by the way, I just need to take a sip of this.
Cheers.
Cheers. As they say. This is so good. This is really lovely. And you can easily see why India is on the verge of becoming a next really large wine country. But that's really not the reason why I asked you to come here today, because you've not only built up this vineyard, you're also currently working on building up wine as an investment opportunity.
Correct.
Yeah. And that is basically because, you can invest in wine and see your fortunes grow way faster than they do on the stock exchange, et cetera, et cetera. But then back to the notion of how come that we value wine so highly. It is because we have a lot of value add in a bottle of wine. We can enjoy it in a different format than its original, the grapes, right? And you can also turn it into an investment opportunity, which actually is driving the price of wine as well, if I understand it correctly, Cecilia.
Correct.
Yeah. So the question, of course, comes to mind, are there any other things we could work with in the world of biodiversity or food beyond wine that would enable us to actually increase the value of the produce itself? Booze, of course, whiskey, a given one, but could you use like soy, vinegar, other types of fermented products perhaps?
I think one thing that is important to do is to analyze why wine investment is such a good investment, and what are the factors that plays a role. One thing that plays a role is that there is a limited supply, limited production, decreased production in terms of the vineyards that there are. There is, though, an increased demand. So if you have that formula in another product, it's a good start. Having said that, to also have something that you invest in, it has to be something that increases in quality with age. So if you can't then already increase the quality by the way that you store it today, you probably need to look at a different thing than the product. You probably need to look at the supply chain, the storage, and the facilities that you have. So I think looking into this whole aspect of wine investment and why you can invest in wine, you can find a lot of interesting products. But I also feel that as you look at this, you should not only look at the product, you should not the problems, but the solutions and the possible options that there are, and there could be to a product than like wine that potentially could disappear in the future. We're talking like many years, but obviously first we then think about what can we do for it not to disappear, and if God forbid we're moving in that direction, what are the products that we could look at as alternatives and invest in the startups and in the companies and the brands that are here to stay. And if they're not here to stay, make them stay.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm thinking of a number of things. Once you start this process of understanding that things can actually increase in value over time, and we had this discussion today with the Minister of Foreign Affairs in the Seychelles, and you wonder, yeah, tuna, they live for a long time, but we tend to fish them when they're really young. What if I can invest in a young tuna and let it age properly, live its good life, and then when it's at its peak perhaps, then I can have it for dinner? Are there any other things we could do that? Yeah, sure, probably. Yep. And I think lamb's meat, we talked about lambs for a bunch of years. That's the highest priced goods, and once the sheep gets old, it's no value left. Whereas actually you can fatten it for a year and come out with a really, really good product. Yeah. So you could invest in that too, right?
Yeah, you can invest in the techniques, absolutely. And absolutely, I'm thinking about, is it Sturry, the Swedish name for the fish that we make Russian caviar from?
The Sturry, yes.
So that's a fish, and we all know that the caviar will be better the older the fish is. So that's also where you look at the product and you look at increasing the life length of...
Exactly. And the same thing with vineyards, right? So old plants, old wines.
Produce the best wines.
That does the best wine, right? So basically what actually financials here can do is let us time shift from one situation where we pick things when they're not ripe, really, so to say, and then move into a future where they have significantly increased in value. And here actually financial markets can play a great role, I think, at least in the discussions we've had around this, in letting the food world become a better one, and more sustainable one, and something that is really pointing towards the future. So how would you say about the wine trade today? Do you think that a lot of people currently trading wine would love to go into other types of financial assets like tuna or vinegar, or as long as they get something out of it?
I think what they want to do in terms of, I think we need to look at it, why do you invest also in various products? Wine is something that you also do as a passion. But for many, and for more and more, a passion and interest becomes in investing in the future, and therefore I believe that these sustainable opportunities and option in terms of food tech and having a sustainable future is becoming more and more of interest. So definitely, I would see that people who would invest in wine would invest in other products too. Now wine happens to be, yes, it's a very good investment in terms of that you get good return, you have money in your pocket. You invest in wines today and you double your investment in 5 years in terms of money in your pocket. But I think we also need to look at what is investments. Is investments the importance of having money in your pocket, or is it investment in yourself, in your health? And the panel earlier was discussing on the importance of then having a very, very clean and healthy environment. So investing in the word, investing in the future should be top priority for anyone. And what are you going to do with your money? What are you going to do in future generation if there are none?
Exactly. No, but I think it's interesting because we always speak about investments in the future like it's a kind of common good, but it doesn't have to necessarily be a common good. It can actually be your own pocket, and you can actually line your own pockets with money if you're interested in that while doing a good thing. And that's also why I think it's been so fun over the past 2 days to discuss food beyond food itself, because food is health. It has a value as health. Food is the environment. It has a value as the environment. And food has a value as an investment object as well. And once we start talking about those new tools, we will also see new solutions in solving the issues around us. Biodiversity, health, education, all the other things that we probably could associate with food when we start looking outside our little boxes. And let's do that over the next year until we see you again. Cheers, Cecilia, for joining me and finalizing this wonderful big meet with the Sula wine. Thank you. Cheers.
So good to be here. See you in India next time.
Cheers to you. Yes. See you in India.